What's up guys, my name is Sansworld and today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to properly layer. For this video we're going to be utilizing the new sound bank that I released with Kevu, which have been supported by Blasterjaxx, as many of you guys know. The previous video was an interview with them which helped a lot of you guys out, and one of the questions in that video was how do you know how many layers to use for your drop leads. So today we're going to be talking about how to do it from scratch. We talked a little bit about it in that interview, but we didn't really get into it like that. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do is pretty much we're gonna find that one sound. I'm sure many of you guys have browsed through your sample pack sound banks and you find that one sound, you're like, holy shit, this sound is sick, this is the one I want. The problem is that half the time, well, I'm gonna say majority of the time, the sound isn't as strong as it needs to be. However, the sound itself is great, but it needs more support in order to sound bigger. So layering will help achieve that. Now, the problem that many people have, and this is the first mistake we're going to be talking about, is that a lot of people layer sounds that sound very similar to each other. The perfect example of that is layering super sauce, and you're going, okay, if I put more super sauce that sound the same, it's going to sound bigger. Yes, it's going to sound bigger, but you can get the same effect if you were to just compress and put the volume up. So there's no need to put another silent one or another synth in the mix. So now let's talk about doing this properly. So right now I'm going to find a drop lead maybe, and this is a MIDI from a sample pack that we're going to be utilizing. So we're going to play it. Alright, here's a perfect example. So here we have this lead, and I think this is one of the ones I made in the sound bank, which imitates that Eva Showtek kind of sound. If you guys have heard Space Jungle, I think that's what it's called, by Eva Shaw, which most likely was produced by Showtek. It has this lead. Alright, now the lead itself sounds good. The problem here is if I don't know if you guys can tell, if you're on headphones you can probably tell, it sounds very wide. Now layering leads, there's we can say three perspectives to it. The first one is going to be the frequencies that lead takes up. So if we were to put an EQ on this, and we're going to put an EQ8. First off, we know that we need to get rid of that low end because this is where our bass is going to go. And this lead has really not that much low end. Now, if you see, this lead is very dominant in this frequency area here. So what I can do is I can remove some of the high part here. Now, the lead itself is not strong. First off, in the frequency area, it's taking up a good portion of the mid part. However, we can do better with the high part. Like we can layer this with white noise or something. Second, the lead itself is very wide, so it's leaving the middle wide open for a big room kick. But one of the other things that we can do is we can layer the sound with something that sounds a bit more mono-ish. Now, mono-ish is going to come mainly from the center, so we find a lead is what we're going to play right now. We're going to try and look for a mono-ish lead. Now, this lead itself, you can see it's taking up a lot of the mids as well. So what we can do is, we know that this lead here is taking up this frequency here, but mainly on the sides. So one of the things we can do is we can turn on the mode into mid side. And what we know is, okay, in the sides, this lead is heavily here. So what we can do is for the layer, go into our our side signal, which S or stereo signals, and we're gonna reduce. And as you can see, this lead is very mono-ish. That's why there's not that much information there. And now what I can do is I can even add a little bit of high end to this because we know that this lead doesn't have any of the high frequencies here as much. So we're going to do a little notch there. All right, once we have that, one of the things we can do is we can go into this lead, and since we know this lead is taking up the mid part of it and it's taking up this frequency, if you want to be super clean about it, we can turn on mid side on this as well. In the sides, we can kind of boost here. And in mono, we can kind of just take away a little bit. Not that much, because you are going to lose some power, but just enough to kind of, you know, give a little bit of correlation. Now, if you guys haven't noticed, what we're doing here is we're pretty much cutting, okay, this lead is taking up this frequency at this stereo field. So that means I can put another lead here and, you know, boost a little bit there, because again, that's open and it's up for grabs. Now, this is the right way to layer. And this is a little bit of the advanced method, because the non-advanced method is just using an EQ and not going into mid-side that much. Now, for those of you guys who are going like, what the fuck is mid-side? Mid-side means that you separate your EQs into two different modes. And means mono, which means pretty much in the center of your mix. A lot of stuff that's in the center of your mix are going to be bass lines, kicks, and all that. So you know straight off the bat that you cannot have a mono sound, a mono lead that has a lot of low into it, because it's going to ruin the kick and bass correlation. Second, the S means stereo, which means more to your sides. So if I were to put, let's say, this headphone here, and I were to put it on this lead, let's do that again. That was in mono. This is going to be in stereo. That's stereo information, what you're hearing right now. So as you see, you know, these two leads are in different parts of the stereo field, and we can kind of layer them together, because first off, the Showtech lead is very wide, and it's kind of around our fucking mono lead, which sounds like this. So if right now I were to play these two sounds for you, this one is going to sound more to the sides, mainly because I did that mid side heavily. And this one is going to sound more in the center. So I'm going to play it a couple more times for you. And now I'm going to play it together. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, for our first layer, what we want to do is get rid of the reverb, and that's about it. Anything that has reverb or delay, you want to get rid of. Maybe some compression as well. And same thing for your other lead. Now, the reason for this, guys, and this has been, I've explained this so many times in a lot of my videos, but in case you haven't watched them, the reason we're doing this is because, first off, we're going to bust these into one channel, which is coming out through here. So command, and you click on both of these, and you're going to do command G. That's going to create a bus, and a bus is going to have these two go in through it, and whatever you're putting on the bus, both of them are going to get. So now we're having both these sounds come out through here. Now, the benefit of doing that is that now we can compress the sound together. And a lot of the times when you layer leads together, guys, they have different dynamic levels. What that means is, if we look at this one, I want you guys to see where it gets loudest, the highest the green goes, and the lowest it goes. You can see it goes up, down, up, down. Okay, now check this one out. This one tends to stay at the top very, very well, because it's compressed very well. It doesn't have a lot of dynamics to it. So what we want to do is we want to glue compress these guys together so they have the same dynamic level in a way. And sounds that have the same dynamic level are going to sound more unified, and not that, you know, like, oh, it sounds like two sounds put together. It's going to sound like one complete sound. And what we're going to do is just use the glue compressor, move this back a bit. Okay, and our release is pretty much going to say, okay, once the compressor is activated, how long does it take for it to go back to 0 after, you know, the threshold is not reached anymore? Because when the threshold is reached, that's when the compressor activates, and the attack is just going to say how fast the compressor activates. Now, keynote, your attack, usually you want it at 1. If you put it at 0.1, it's going to activate instantly, and you're going to lose a lot of that punchiness from your lead. But if that's what you want, then that's what you do. But usually people have it at 1 or 0.3. Okay, so once we have that, guys, we could add another layer. For me, this is already pushing it, but we're going to do it just for the hell of it. Now, we already have a very mono-ish sound, and we already have a very whitish sound. So what else could we add to this? Well, one of the things we could add is maybe a sound that has really high end to it, maybe, or it's very plucky to add punchiness to the sound itself. So let's see, maybe we can. We're gonna put this up an octave. All right, now we're going to get rid of this EQ because this sound isn't going to require any mid-side in my opinion. And what we're going to do is apply it here. First off, let's get rid of the low part because again, we have already established we don't need that. Now also keep in mind, we have these two sounds already taking up frequency. So the sound itself is very powerful. If I wanted to add this pluck, then I need to make room for it. So one of the places I know that a lot of these sounds aren't occupying is the very high end of it. So okay, so then we're gonna give it, let it come in like this, maybe. All right, so that sound doesn't really work well. Let's try this one. All right, so once we have that sound, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take away the reverb, and now we have this kind of layer. And once we have our layer, guys, now we can get into the fun stuff, which is adding that reverb. Now, there are two ways you can add your reverb for the layer. The first way is you can do it on the bus itself, which to me isn't as clean as having it in a return. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a return and call it, you know, lead verb or some shit. And we're going to take this off, but we're going to utilize the Ableton reverb just so you guys can see. We're going to, oops, wrong. Ah, fuck, I deleted the thing. Well, fuck it. We're going to get rid of that. I'm going to call it reverb. There you go. Decay times usually for leads, guys, doesn't really go over 3 that much, but anywhere between 0.50 to 1 is fine. A key note to note is that when you're using reverb, you want to use it to the point where you can barely notice it's there. That's when you know you have enough. So there you can see we have this great layer. Now, other things we can do now that we have these 3 guys pretty much in a bus, we can do stuff to it at the same time. Those 3 leads get altered by whatever we add into the bus, and that's important, guys. You know, back then, this is what I thought. Okay, if I want the leads to sound very similar to each other, then I need to have the same effects on them. One of the cool things is that eventually, you know, as producers started kind of releasing their secrets, you know, like Cashmere and all them, I started noticing that most of them always said you got to bust your leads, and then compress them together, same reverb for your leads, because it creates this unifying effect. And to me, that's just like, okay, I've been doing it this way, so that means I've been right the whole time, which is amazing in my opinion. But now what we can do, guys, is also add saturation to this. We can add it wide or whatever. Usually just increasing the drive should do it for you guys, even if you want to kind of focus on the frequency. But don't overcomplicate it. And once we have this, you know, we're pretty much done. Now we can EQ it as a whole, because now we've cut each one up already, as you guys can see. And finally, just get rid of that low end one more time. And, you know, maybe a little bit of ping pong delay or something. Like, let's say you want to make the whole thing wide. You could, But one of the things to note, guys, is that one of our leads is mono-ish, so you're also going to alter it. So you got to be very, very, very careful. But as you guys can see, just a little bit of a review, and for me to try to explain it one more time for those of you guys who kind of don't get it. We found our first initial sound, the one we liked, which was the Eva Showtek lead, which sounds like this. And as you guys can hear it, it's very, very, very wide. Now, when it comes to layers, there's two things that I feel are the most important when it comes to layering stuff together. First off, your main lead is going to have stereo, and it's going to be somewhere in the mix, and it's going to be somewhere in the frequency, okay? So think of it as, okay, you have your wide and mono, and then you have your low frequency, mid frequency, high frequency. So this lead is going to pertain somewhere in the stereo field and somewhere in your frequency range. Now, the lead itself was lacking in the mono signal, which means in the center, and a lead that locks in the center will not have that much power. So one of the things we did is we used this lead, which was here, that was very mono-ish, to layer it with it. And what this is going to do is this is going to support the main lead that we liked, by pretty much covering the area where it's weak. So pretty much think, oh, this lead sucked at doing free throws, but is good at doing 3-pointers. So let's get another basketball player that can do free throws. That way, if we have to do a free throw, we'll get this fucker to take it, So once we have that, then finally we added this plucky lead. And that one was just for fun, to show you how I would add another layer to this. And as you can see, we got rid of a lot of these frequencies here, which is, you're like, oh man, the lead itself is going to be weak because you took that away. But the key thing you want to note here, guys, is you care more about how they sound together rather than how each one sounds individually, and that's the important part. And now you make room for all of them, and when you have your layer, it doesn't sound like a fucking shit ton of sounds put together. It sounds like someone that knew what they were doing put layers together, and we get this. Anyways, guys, hopefully this tutorial was helpful for you guys. And as always, if you want to support me, make sure to check out the new sound bank. There is a free demo up for download, so you can get 14 of the sounds from the 100-pack sound bank for free. So you guys can try it out if you want, or even just want to have the sounds for your collection. I forgot what sounds I added to the demo, but I know it's a couple of good ones because you want to have that wow factor in that demo. So make sure to check it out. And as always, guys, thanks for supporting everything. And I'll see you guys next time. If you guys have any more suggestions on stuff you would like to learn when it comes to mixing, leave a comment below and I'll try to get to it eventually. Take care and have a great day.